What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies. This is a long time coming. We're continuing the 31 conversations in 31 days with one of the very first conversations I ever wanted to have when I started this whole series. And I am so happy to have her here. I'm going to bring in her face first, and then I'm going to give her the royal treatment as far as doing the introduction. She is a director, a writer, producer, horror enthusiast, which makes it a perfect time to have a conversation with her. As she just reminded me, here's Stylist because she has to go out
Yeah.
to work after this. Um, Proud to say, sex work supporter, KC native, all around badass. And personally, I could say she's a homie and a friend of mine. We have Jill Gavargazian. You may just call her Jill Sixx if that's easier to pronounce for you. I have been memorizing it, so I know how to say it correctly.
I was just about to say hello, everyone, but I was just about to say you nailed the pronunciation without even asking me.
Mhm.
Um, I've joked that I need to upload my own just YouTube of just pronouncing it so people can look it up, and there I am saying it for you.
Well, honestly, I've been saying it for the last 2 years. I mean, when we see each other, it's not like I'm gonna hit you up by your government name. I'm just gonna be like, "What's up?" But,
Yeah.
you know, I've been proud to say I've seen it in many places. It's been on many lips. It's been on many fingers as it's typed on many keyboards. So, I'm just gonna put this out there from the beginning. I am proud of you. I am proud of you and what you've done and what you continue to do. And I know you're not going to drop any bombs today, but I'm excited for the future and what you have coming out. I watched Blair Witch Project a few weeks ago because we've just been talking different movies over the month, and someone said, "Ooh, let's talk about Blair Witch." And when I saw Michael in the corner, I'm like, I know I'm going to see him again on the screen. So little things like that. It just kind of makes me giddy to not only know you personally, but get to know someone who's doing their thing as a filmmaker. I went to KU, did film studies there, and there's so many film studies students that graduated and then never took it to the next step for, life reasons or whatever. Um, Sav Rogers, probably the other person doing it right now. He has his documentary out, Chasing Amy. But there's so many people that they went in with that attitude, or basically people who never went to film school and they went in with that attitude and just never got to that next step. So to know someone personally who's doing their thing, and you are doing your thing. So yes, it's a big honor to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm very flattered by all of that. Um,
It's all true.
yeah, thank you. It's been a wild ride when I look back and realize how long we've been making stuff. Pardon my dog's cameo here, Tina, it's okay. Um, Eric Havens and I, who you know as well, were
Hmm.
just realizing it had been at the end of September, it was 10 years since we shot our very first project together, which was my first time directing anything. It's called Call Girl, and I couldn't believe I've been making stuff for 10 years. It feels like it's been
Wow.
1 year, but at the same time, it feels like it's been a long time and a very short time somehow.
Yeah, it's amazing. You mentioned Eric. I might as well just jump into my questions here. It I feel like we were meant to meet each other because of all these weird connections. So I used to work with Eric at KU, and then I would leave KU and I would go and work at Apple, where I worked with um, Knitter and Jordan,
Yeah.
who are from Method Media, who worked with you. So it's like a weird connection, and the way it all interacts is just beautiful. So to see them doing their thing and then also see you doing your thing, it just kind of everything just comes together.
Yeah, it is a crazy small world of how we have connections in both places, and then Eric and Method Media and me have all come together and made stuff together, and
Hmm.
it's been an awesome journey.
So I want to stick to my format, but I know I'm going to fangirl on you a lot. So just apologies from the beginning. So the way we normally do the conversation is we start off with a non-movie question, we get into the good stuff, and then we finish with the 5 takes, which is the 5 questions I ask at the end of every conversation. Since it's spooky season, we have a remix on that. So we'll be sensitive of time, but we'll definitely try to get those in, even if they're just like quick hitters of answers. But I want to tell you a quick story before we begin. So, not this past May, but previous May, my niece was graduating high school and we're having a little party for a get together, whatever. And I'm sitting in the kitchen, I got my AirPods in, and I'm watching and I'm typing on my phone. And she comes up to me and she asks me, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm putting these questions together for this interview conversation thing I want to have with this lady I know." She's like, "Oh, who is she?" And I went through and I'm telling her everything that you've done and, the feature film and everything, and she's like, "Ooh, she sounds interesting. I hope you get to have that conversation soon." Here we are a year and a half later,
Oh
and
my
we're
gosh.
having that conversation. So you're gonna get more than one non-movie question, but we'll start
You are
with the
prepared. I like
yeah,
it.
we'll start with the one that's near and dear to our hearts. I love seeing how much of a Chiefs fan you are, a Kansas City Chiefs fan. You're out there, you're parking lot pimping, you're tailgating with the homies. I love to see that every week. What do you think about the season so far?
Um,
Besides
it's
the
a
Taylor
mix.
stuff.
I'm very excited about Taylor Swift, side note. I was a little worried at the start because it kinda felt like we're winning, but not playing as well as we could be. But then this last game, which I was in Knoxville, and I missed being there in person, and I didn't watch it. I only just like check the score on my phone every 10 minutes.
Mhm.
So I hear that game we played like badasses again. So and it's like we're still winning all
Yeah,
most of our games. The opening game was a bummer to
yeah,
lose just
yeah, that
because
was a
it's like
hard loss.
we're back and it's the first game and then boo-hoo. It's
Yeah,
always like I don't let those things get me too upset, but, like, when you're in the stadium, it's like that this oppressive feeling you feel from, like, everyone. It's like the
mhm.
a mass amount of people being all bummed out at once is really, like, overwhelming.
Yeah. I'm a
Um,
sports fan,
yeah.
so it's like anytime there's a banner raising, championship celebration, ring, distribution, whatever it is, the home team usually tends to lose that game. I don't know, it's like a sports curse or something. And then the way it was going down, I was like, they're playing to the level of the teams. I would say the first 3 games or so, they were playing to the level of the teams instead of playing Chiefs football. So I was like, "Come on, be yourselves, guys." And they're
Yeah,
getting it together now. They're getting it
yeah.
together. Um,
Taylor Swift is helping, of course.
yes, and you're a new Swiftie, I hear.
Yes.
I see you in the car and you're listening to Taylor's version of whatever. And I'm
I
like,
just
"Look
listened
at
to a
her."
couple of her albums, like, in its entirety while driving back and forth from Knoxville, and I'm like, "This stuff is good." I haven't been listening I mean,
Yeah.
like, I know half of it because it's over half
Popular.
of it has been, on top 40 radio. So
Mhm.
that's also pretty impressive. One of the albums I listened through, I'm like, I could sing along to half of these songs, and I've never listened to this album, so that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's crazy. Alright, another question. Do you consider yourself a connoisseur of rap snacks?
I do. I sadly haven't had them in a minute
Me
'cause,
neither.
they're unfortunately, as you know, not the most healthy thing. Chips I have a chip weakness in general, so I, like, try to not even buy them.
Me too.
It's like a special occasion. There you
From
go.
Canada. That's how bad it is.
That
I got
classic ketchup
yep,
flavor.
yep.
There's
So
this chip mix, random thing at Trader Joe's. They
mhm,
probably don't even sell it. You know how Trader Joe's sells these things and it's like
seasonal.
awesome, and then you go next time and it's not there. I'm like,
Mhm.
why? They made this mix of like one was a ketchup flavor, one was barbecue, one was maybe dill, one was salt and vinegar. And it was all in one bag.
Mm.
I would have never normally bought something like that. My friend bought it. I'm like, this is amazing. Why didn't we get these all the time?
I
Chimp
recently got
rant.
put on to, shout out to my daughter, 3rd KB. she put me on to Munchies, which is a combination of different things like Doritos, Sun Chips, whatever, and
Mm.
they got it in flaming hot now, so you could get flaming hot Cheetos, Doritos, Sun Chips, Roll Goals, all in the same bag like a trail mix.
I
It's
like
so
it.
good. I could eat the whole bag, it's so good. Yeah, we could talk other stuff, but let's talk some movies. So before we get into what I really want to talk about, you once were quoted saying that Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet made you want to become a filmmaker. So, couple questions about that. What was it about that film? Um, what got you into horror movies altogether based off of that? And then, as a horror fan, how does Baz relate to you? So, we'll start with the first one. What is it about Romeo and Juliet that made you want to be a filmmaker?
Um, that's a great question.
Thank you.
Like, it's so deep. Uh, I think it's just that that movie came out when I was probably, like, 12. I saw it 10 times in the theater on its first run. Um, I before becoming a horror freak, I was already in love with movies, but my favorite thing were sad movies. I think it was because a movie that was could, like, be that powerful and make me that emotional was, like, really exciting to me. It wasn't like, "I wanna be sad." It was like, "This is incredible. A movie can do this." Like, I recognized that really young and, like, sought out sad movies.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think about it now, I'm like, "That's kinda morbid." Like, I'm like a 5-year-old, like, all excited, like, getting ready to cry and watch a movie.
yeah.
Um, but so it was, like, sad first, and then when I discovered scary, I think it was a similar thing I liked about it, like, it's not like a put in the background kinda movie or genre. Now it is that we watch it so much, but both like, like, tragic and scary to me are, like, very engaging,
Mhm.
storytelling, but, so I was already, like, primed for that. Then Romeo and Juliet came out, and I was a fangirl of Leonardo DiCaprio and of Claire Danes, via My So-Called Life, which I think
Yeah.
any girl my age grew up with that
Yeah,
shit.
yeah, yeah.
That made us all like alternative. We dyed our hair red like her. It all connects. I named Claire in The Stylist after Claire Danes.
Thank you.
But so both of them being in it, it being like I also loved, like, romantic sad movies, and so, um but, like, I just loved the style of it. It was just so inspiring to me, like, it inspired everything. I started collecting, like, angel figurines and Virgin Marys because like, her room was decked out in that stuff.
Mhm.
I still have tons of it, like, some behind me right now. Um, I love just the aesthetic of the film, the feeling of it, how much it impacted me emotionally. I just loved it, and me and my best friend started, like, making stuff, not in a serious way, we were completely, like, making mockeries of we remade Romeo and Juliet even, just us 2 playing every single character, and then we would just watch it just us 2 and, like, cry laughing at it, like, there was no
Aw,
point other than to watch it, make it
yeah,
ourselves and, like, watch it. The things we would do, but, yeah, I just think it's interesting because like, when I rewatch it now, the style of it is so chaotic. I normally my films aren't, like, edited like that at all. I realize,
yeah,
like, oh, I'm not really as influenced as I think, but visually, like, I love all like, it's so gothic, all the candles, the architecture in the film, the religious, s symbolism, like, just all the I just love the aesthetic of it so much, and the film, it's everything about it. I don't know
yeah.
where to stop talking about it.
So, you once said that, "I don't want everyone to be sad, but I do love
Mhm.
tragic stories, they're beautiful in some crazy way." For me, my favorite is Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind. Would Romeo and Juliet be your favorite then?
Yeah, I think so, but I know there's gotta be a list in my head somewhere of others that I just can't pull out right now,
Yeah,
but yeah, it's something I just really love emotional stories really at the core, like, whatever genre they're in, I want a film to, like, engage me that deeply, or it's just like, whatever. It's just
yeah,
like passing entertainment if it doesn't do that.
yeah, but I think horror movies do that for a lot of
Mhm.
people. They just we get so desensitized, especially post-pandemic world we live in that we just wanna feel, and I think for a lot of people, a horror movie is the way they feel these days. So, back to that original question, um, so what made you fall in love with horror movies?
Um, kinda like where I was what I was saying with the how I went from sad to scared once I discovered scary, I realized it was a similar engagement with the film. It's like, this is I can never remember exactly how he said it, but Lawrence Harvey, the actor from Human Centipede, I've worked with a couple of times, he puts this in such an eloquent way of how, a lot of entertainment, like I've said, is just kind of mindless and there to kind of just be a distraction, while others, like, you can't watch it that way, like, you're forced to engage with it deeply, and that's what I like about it. It's not it's confrontational, I think is a good way to put it. It's not like until you become like us and you've watched the same movie 100 times, and then you can watch Texas Chainsaw again, and although that's one I'm still like, "That is not a fun watch," and it's one of my favorite
Mhm.
movies of all time.
If I have a request from you ever, I need you to do a running commentary on that movie because I've been known to say that was not my favorite movie, and then it wasn't until recently that I sat down and watched the whole thing beginning to end, and I understand the cultural importance of it, but at the same time, I'm like, "Would you stop screaming, Zeppeli? Stop screaming." But there's so much more to that movie, which I know you are well aware of, but we could talk about that later.
Yeah. But honestly,
So
I before I discovered horror movies, it was more about, like I just realized I loved the feeling of being scared, like playing hide and seek at night, with the neighborhood friends, and anything we could do to and change the game to it being when it's dark would make it scary, or, like,
mhm,
just going and roaming the woods as an adventure. For me, like, part of the fun was that it was kind of scary.
right.
I always loved any so when I discovered scary movies and books existed, I was really excited about that.
Okay. I think we need to get into this thing here. So, starting with the short film and then the feature premiering 2 years after that, about 2 years after that at Fantastic Fest. I guess you've lived with this movie now for what, 6, 7 years? Talking about The Stylist, your first
Even
feature film?
longer.
Even longer. So, let's talk about, first of all, what were some of the biggest challenges getting both the short and the feature film made?
Oh, man. Well, with the short, at that time when we started writing the short, I'd only made 1 short at that time and had never written anything, and the short I had directed previously was a very simple in its setup compared to making something different, like, it was like a found footage style, like, from a computer screen like this, so that was, like, one angle. Call Girl presented its own challenges, but it felt like Stylist in a way was, like, the first movie I was making that's, like, shot traditionally, and, um, so I employed Eric Havens to help write it, having no idea how to even form a script or what programs to use at that point, and really it was Matt had this incredible crew come along, but I feel like the biggest challenges are always the money, but that's not even
Mhm.
fun to talk about. Um, but yeah, even that short film was pretty expensive. So but it was really exciting to do because are my main 2 producers that made it with me, Robert Stern, who's also the director of photography, and Sarah Sharp, who's also the production designer, so they're a big part of how it looks, I mean, a huge part. Um, they had seen me traveling around with Call Girl, and they wanted to work with me because they saw how I was that dedicated to the film. I was, like, going with it to festivals, so it was really exciting to see that people wanted to work with me just because of that.
Right.
But it was really they kind of took me through a boot camp version of film school when we made that film. I feel like making that film is what taught me how to continue to make films.
Yeah.
Um, but it was actually 4 freaking years between The Stylist coming out, the short and the feature, and even longer between we shot it, like, 5 years. So it was a crazy experience. It was like writing a million drafts, trying to
Mhm.
find money, thinking feeling like we were pretty secure with this producer with the feature for a while, and we decided, like, "Screw this. I know that game, you send it out for, like, a year and nobody finances your movie, and then you just never make that movie."
Right.
So I turned to Robert, Sarah, and Najara, our lead actress. It's like, these are the 3 people that I need to make the movie with, that, like, they're who we start with, really. So I was like, "Are you guys down to figure out how to make this movie on our own?" Like, we kickstart it, we piece it together, like, chunk at a time with money, and I really thought they'd all say no, but they were all like, "Hell yeah, let's freaking do it."
Yeah.
So
I've seen on Instagram and just in general, you said you're surprised that people still wanna talk to you about the Stylist after all this time, but we're talking about it's made end of year lists, it has critical praise, festival appearances, Fangoria Chainsaw Awards nomination. This is your baby. Like, how does it make you feel about your first feature? And to this day, I mean, I know you look on Twitter and you still see people seeing it for the first time on Shudder or, "Oh, I picked it up on the Arrow sale as a blind buy and I was blown away," or whatever people say about it. How does that make you feel about the film?
incredibly proud, and it's just freaking surreal.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is my baby, and it's scary in that way, like, to be done with it. Um, it's
Mm.
not done totally in my head because 'cause
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
still
yeah,
talking about it, but,
yeah.
like, it's a weird thing. I realized once we were about to premiere it at Fantastic Fest, I was like, it was like it suddenly dawned on me, like, there you're gonna be done working on this at some point. It's like that never I never really consciously thought that through. I was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, that's weird." Because yeah, like this has been a part of my life for so long, and it's
Yeah.
so personal. It's like, I am a hairstylist. It is my dog in the movie. It's like
Mhm. It is your city.
things that I say at the salon are actual dialogue I put in the script. Um, so yeah, it's so personal and so weird for it to be behind me, but it still feels so much a part of my life.
It's always gonna be a part of your life. That's the beauty of putting out art. Like, I used to DJ, and every once in a while, someone will bring up, like, a mixtape or something from, like, 10 years ago. I'm like, "You're now hearing that?"
Yeah,
It's probably, like, classic tracks to you now, but it's art. You put it out there, and it just lives and breathes, and, we could pass, and it's still out there. There's still people discovering it. It's a beautiful thing. For
yeah,
anyone who doesn't do any kind of art, any type of I'll make it into a YouTube term, content creation, just to put something out there and see it have a life of its own. I use
mhm,
the right word. It really is like your baby, and it's not exclusive to you. You had other people around you helping you create it, but at the same time, it's something that you put your heart and soul into, and to see other people appreciating it and understanding it because, there's so many people that just watch a movie and they get the surface level thing, but that's about it. So it's crazy,
yeah,
like, even the way you would categorize it, like, you categorize it as Cosmo horror, like, along the lines of something like a Neon Demon or, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, Black Swan, but for those paying attention, I mean, it's also like a story about, like, postmodern, like, alienation, which people are dealing with that, whether they acknowledge it or not, especially after the pandemic. So I don't think people discuss it enough. We've been talking about how modern horror movies are really focusing on different things: mental health, grief, trauma. So even by you having this story of alienation, and I wouldn't even say awkwardness, but that's an offshoot of the alienation. I just don't think, like, people discuss it enough. It's kinda like people feel like I'm the only one dealing with this. So you capturing that and putting it on film in this character, it's amazing because it's kinda like, "No, you're not the only one. Look, you may not be a serial killer,
yeah,
but, you're not alone." And it's almost like a cry for people to, like, see that it's a lot more than just, like, surface level stuff.
yeah, and it's funny when you say even you're not a serial killer. It's funny because I am was trying underneath the horror part, do wanna make something that is relatable, that people can feel for her or relate to her and separate understand that that part's like the
Yeah, yeah.
fantastical part of the story, but the other part is very grounded, and that part I actually really struggled with in the like, in before we started making it, just, like, how we would, like, keep this tone that I wanted her to feel like a very grounded human while doing these very over the top things. So I was like, even
Yeah.
like a real like a real life serial killer isn't this like theatrical, but I still wanted her to be, but I wanted her to not feel like I was so worried about it becoming silly, which
Mhm.
I think we have Najara to thank her performance.
Yeah, she's great in
'Cause just the
this.
concept sounds like it could be really funny and fun, which I've said,
Mhm.
like, Stylist Part 7 or whatever should be that. Like, or we do a chainsaw thing, we go immediately to the second one being ridiculous,
Yeah.
which I kinda think I would if I were to do it, I'd have to do that because 'cause I'm like the first one I take very seriously, like, she's obviously, spoiler alert,
Yeah.
not getting away with this. Um,
But there are comedic elements in it. I mean,
yeah.
I have my copy here, and the, it's coming off of the thing because 'cause I've watched it so many times, but I had both
Uh-oh.
you and Eric sign it, and I said, "Sign it with a line that you wrote," and he put the "What the fuck, Claire" line, which I think is, like, the funniest part in the movie. It's not
Yes.
intended to be funny, but it's the delivery and everything that makes it. So, I think that balance of not being silly, but having comedy in it, I think
Mhm.
it's very delicate, but it was done so well.
It's funny that line in the short film we had was so it started in the short, and we had no idea it was gonna be funny, and then the first screening, everyone laughed at it, and I think it was, like 'cause it's a nice, like, release in the middle of the
Mhm.
tension in the short, um, but because people loved it so much and everyone was like, "You need to make, like, a sticker that says this or something," I was like, "We gotta bring this back somewhere in the future and see what happens,"
Yep,
but yeah,
still gets laughs.
we didn't know. You never and that's what's cool about when you
You
finally
never know.
release something, you don't know how a certain part is gonna make almost everyone laugh. You're like, "I didn't mean for that to happen, but that's cool."
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
weird feeling because at first I'm like, "Did I make a mistake?" But I like it that they're laughing at it.
Happy mistakes, happy mistakes. Another major accomplishment. 10th anniversary of House of Psychotic Women. You're now a part of it. The stylist is in there. Would you consider yourself a feminist filmmaker? What does that expression even mean to you?
I think kinda like naturally, I am because I'm a feminist and I'm a filmmaker, but I don't set out to make, like, feminist films, whatever the heck that means.
Right.
Yeah, I just think that naturally comes out if that's something you believe, probably.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't it's interesting because Stylist and I didn't even recognize it till we started breaking it down for pre-production that it was almost solely female characters. We have, like, one guy who's a has a decent part, but it's small couple days on camera.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize it till I had this list in front of me. I'm like, "Oh, wow." I didn't set out with this list of, like, I'm only gonna have women in a movie, and it's gonna be about all female stuff, whatever the hell that means. Um, it just naturally happened. And I think that's kind of that adds to the whole idea of kind of everyone who wants more representation behind the camera, more of a variety of humans telling stories, whoever that is, because it's like, naturally, then we get different stories. It's like we wonder why pre a certain time, every movie is, like, about a white dude in his, like, 30s or 40s. All those directors were white dudes at that like, so that's why they told those stories.
Right.
It makes sense, like, it's like you tell what you relate to and what you know, so that's why we need people behind the camera that aren't more than
Yeah.
just white men.
In all
Um,
in all aspects of
yes.
filmmaking because it's all gonna be represented different ways. So
Mhm.
if you want your production to have a certain look or a certain design, you have to get female PAs because they're gonna have a different perspective than a straight cishet male, you know? So,
Yeah.
different things like that. You want trans people in there. You want gender fluid people in there because each person will bring their own type of personality and aspect to a film in
Yeah.
any part, catering even, it doesn't matter. It does not
Yeah.
matter. All those things are equally important. Talking about that, kinda related, I think most movie watchers, even today, would be hard pressed to name, like, more than 10 mainstream female directors. Do you see just not even comparing, but do you see independent films changing that landscape or kind of creating a lane of their own? Because, I mean, a couple months ago, I went to the Etheria Film Short Film Festival up at Screenland, and blown away, not because, "Wow, women are doing this," but because, "Wow, these are the type of ideas and concepts and visions that we need to see in more feature films, more big budgeted films." So do you see it as changing or just creating something of your own?
I think I notice it changing. I feel like I've noticed there's so many more films coming out from women, not just in the smaller, smaller independent realms, but even in the studio. So I feel like the studio is kind of jumping onto that. Some trends are positive and can help things change. Um, but I do wish, especially with the more mainstream films, I feel like it's like all these very obvious things. They're like, "Oh, this very girly movie like Barbie, we will give to the one female director we can think of,"
Yeah,
which I loved it, and I feel like if Greta Gerwig had not done it, it
that
wouldn't
touch.
be what it is.
Yeah.
Um, but I find it just kind of obnoxious that I feel like the studios are like you said, they probably have this list of like 3 women that they've heard of that make movies or that have made bigger, like gotten to that stage. Like
Yeah,
they've made something that won an Oscar, like, she wins an Oscar with like an incredible coming of age independent film and then gets this huge, which I did love Barbie, but I feel like that's not something she would have made maybe on her own again.
right.
Or like, Patty Jenkins going from like Monster, it's the most fucked up awesome
Wonder
movie
Woman.
ever, to Wonder Woman, which Wonder Woman I love too, like,
Yeah,
but
that
it's
first
just
one was awesome.
why don't they get to make big fucked up movies too, or big thrillers or other stuff, not just then again, that's also a whole bigger conversation of Hollywood only makes, superhero movies and shit anymore. They don't make anything else. Even,
Yeah,
people like Scorsese and David Fincher can't get huge studios to make their movies anymore. So they don't make
yeah,
movies like it's an interesting thing. But I do feel like
yeah,
it's changing. Like I used to make sure to really seek out female made films and now I'm naturally discovering them so much more.
yeah. The first name that came to mind when you started saying that was, like, Chloe Zhao, where she was
Yes,
making smaller budgeted films, and then,
incredible films.
like, all of a sudden something like The Rider comes along, and then all of a sudden she's, being offered a Marvel movie. It's like, maybe not."
I mean, it is still an awesome thing because I guess, like we're saying, they barely make good, like, drama thrillers at that level anymore,
Yeah,
which is a sad state.
it is.
But it is incredible to make these, like, super indie character-focused films and then get these huge fucking not I would say yes to one of those things in a heartbeat, so, um, yeah, it's amazing. Like, she went from, Nomadland to, yeah, a Marvel film. It's kinda
Mhm.
that's all the stories it seems in that situation.
Yeah. Let's do a little shift here. I'm gonna go back in the Twitter timeline archive here. This is something you
Uh-oh.
tweeted, I wanna say March
I
15th,
get
don't
I
ask
get
me.
scared when you start quoting me.
No, no, no,
What
it's
can
all
I
good.
say?
You know
I'm
I got
kidding.
love for you. It's all good. So your tweet said, "Being back on set for the first time in 2 years reminds me of how all-consuming it is. The rest of the world disappears. I get to escape to a place of make-believe with people I love dearly. It's a dream come true." And this was in reference to the movie you produced recently, Black Mold. Um,
Yes.
you put on your producer hat, Six Tape Productions. Uh, I was very honored to be at Panic Fest and be among one of the first people to watch it with you and the cast and crew and everything. What can you tell us? Give us a brief synopsis of Black Mole, and then we'll talk about the future of the movie.
Yeah. It's about a pair of photographers who like to explore abandoned buildings, and our main character Brooke has just landed this incredible grant to do a showing at this like her dream art gallery, and so they've gotten access to this super creepy abandoned building, and needless to say, everything starts to fall apart in that building once they meet this creepy squatter
Hmm.
played by the amazing Jeremy Holm. That was my first time working with him, and holy cannoli, that guy is wild and fun.
Yeah. It was pretty cool to watch not 1, but 2 movies with him because he was also in Brooklyn 4-5. So,
Yes.
it he is underrated. He needs to, like, get some kinda breakout role where and not even mainstream, but more people get to know him
Have you
because
seen The Ranger? A slasher that came out a few years ago. He's, like, the lead character, and it's awesome. It's on Shudder. Jen Wexler directed it. Um, he's actually been a big actor for a while, but he should be even bigger, but he was on House of Cards for a season, done lots of big TV. But yeah, he's and
he's a
got such
leading
a great
man.
look with that, like, that jaw.
Yeah.
He's a
He's got
badass.
that strong old school Superman jaw. He's
Totally.
taller than me, which is saying something, and shoulders go out as far as my elbows do, and just, like,
Yeah.
big but not brooding,
Yeah.
great great, great presence. Like,
I
he's
think
in the
you'll
room,
love
you
yeah.
know he's in
I
the
think you'll
room.
love him as the Ranger. It's such a funny and badass character the way
I gotta
Jen
check
wrote
that
it.
out. So, another performance, kinda low key, but a supporting role that was really good to me was, Kato's performance as CJ.
Yeah, and she had been working with that team on a film called Revealer, which is another Shudder film. She's the
Mhm.
star of Revealer, and, so that was the connection of she was already in the film family.
Yeah.
Robert and Sarah had worked on Revealer, and so just we're a tight-knit fam here between, like, Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, and Kansas City,
I
all
could
over
see,
there.
it's like a little family, you end up working with the same
Yeah,
people over and over again, and you get familiarity with how you are on set, on location, uh, off hours, different things like that, and it's almost like you develop a tempo, I have to
yeah,
imagine, of, like, I
exactly.
know how he moves, I know how he lights, I know how she's gonna, back me up with the script and everything like that. You kinda get used to that, I imagine.
Yeah, it's really like, that's kind of the goal. You're trying to slowly find all of your people because, yeah, like you said, when you have that second hand, it's like you almost don't need to even speak, and you kinda know what needs to happen next, especially with, I think, camera teams like Robert and his people. When they've already worked together, that type of thing, the technical stuff moves so much faster versus, like, you have a whole gang of people who've never worked together. But I
Mm,
did that on my most recent film, which we can talk about a little bit at some point, but it was a new experience for me, like, no one that I've ever known we're all together suddenly, but
mhm.
we still managed to do that too, but yeah, that team, this Midwest team is incredible.
Are we at the point of talking anything future? I'm into physical media, so are we talking anything like a little handshake with Arrow? Is Shudder already showing interest? I know
For
it's
Black
still
Mold?
Yeah, I know it's still in the film festival cycle and everything like that, but I'm always looking forward to the next time I could see a good movie, so anything
Yeah.
you wanna drop here?
It
If
will be
not, I can
coming out
always
in
edit
mini
it out.
forms, but we do plan for a physical as well as, like, streaming, of course.
Nice. Nice. I mentioned being a physical media collector. What's your collection like? I know one time I saw you break out like a VHS copy of I Know What You Did Last Summer. So, what's your collection like? Is it modest? Are you like this, and we never see it? What is
It's,
it like?
I I I don't know, I have a decent collection, but it's not I'm I'd say it's modest compared to real collectors because 'cause I've kinda stopped trying to or caring to collect for years. When I was younger, I would go buy a lot of stuff or, like, when all the Blockbusters were closing down,
Yeah.
we all went and cleared those people out for $1 a Blu-ray every day. It went down
Mhm.
the price every day. Um, but I it's decent, I think. I've liked most of the classics and stuff I love, but now I barely buy movie. I have to, like, be obsessed with the movie to buy it. Or but
Mhm.
I will rent everything. I pay for everything. But it's more rare that I buy a physical copy now. But I do have, like, my favorite VHSs from when I was younger. I didn't collect I mean, I didn't have money when I was that young. My parents weren't buying me too much stuff, but I still do
Right.
have, like, a couple of my Disney clamshells, and then I've got, like, my Scream 2. I know he did last summer, The Faculty, which I had Robert Patrick
Yeah.
sign my Faculty. When I brought it up, he was
Yeah.
like, "Well, this is no one's brought me this one to sign
Nice.
before." So that was fun. But, yeah, I most the kind of my '90s teen horrors I've kept. I have my Romeo and
Mhm.
Juliet tape still. It's,
Of
like,
course.
the cardboard sleeves falling apart at this
Did
point.
you get a 4K player yet? Do I
I
have to
have
get
not.
on you about that?
I don't have a 4K player. I don't have a 4K I'm not, like, a techie person
I
like
know,
that.
we gotta get you into the game. We should go Black Friday shopping together or something. We gotta get you into the game. I mean, you could get, like, a new TV, $300, another 100 gets you a 4K player. Then you could watch something that you're in. Hello, where is it?
But I
I
think
have
I
it
also
nearby.
for my second sight edition, I need a region-free player.
Yes, if you wanna watch the Blu-rays, but I'll show you the American version here. So she's on this,
I've been
people.
meaning to buy it, so I
She's
have both.
on here. So there's a
Yes,
beautiful documentary on here called "The Legacy of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre," and they got experts to talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre and what it meant to them, and you get to see this lovely lady here just waxing poetic about the Saw and how it's family and all this good stuff. Do you even show the tattoo at any point? I don't even remember.
I feel like I don't think so, and I'm trying to remember what I was wearing if you'd be able to see it, like, the chainsaw's here, but the saw's family item, sure I didn't show that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, when I had this email show up about being interviewed for this, I was like, "Is this a joke?" Because this is like a geek dream that I didn't even have come true, or ever think would be a thing that would happen. Um,
Mhm.
so I still can't believe it. And then I was so nervous. I'm like, "Can we do this, like, over and over again? Because my answer's not gonna be great the first time." So I have no idea still because I haven't watched it, what is used. I'm just kinda
Yeah,
scared
you're
about that.
you're awesome. You need to check
Yeah.
it out. It turned out really well,
And
and
if
you
you're
were great.
UK or a region-free person, that second sight edition is
Beautiful.
I guess I have a limited one that's already gone, so I'm sorry I'm promoting this, but it's so fucking cool.
You can
It
still
has
get the
it
disc,
has a
but
book inside of this limited one that the book is bigger than the whole other edition. I mean, it's
mhm,
insane. It's gorgeous, and the art
yes,
on it, Second Sight puts out the most beautiful stuff. Can they
they're my
make it
favorite boutique
US
label
as
right
well?
now. So, tell us what you can about the new movie, and then after we're done recording, you could tell me the rest.
Oh, I wish I could say so many more things. I'm really excited about it. I cannot yet even say the title, but it was written by Adam Caesar, who horror fans might know him from his novels. He wrote Clown in a Cornfield, which already has a sequel, and both those books are incredible. Clown, I feel like, has been optioned to be made into a film as well. I'm like, can you put me on that? Because I want to do it. But so Adam wrote it, and it's executive produced by the director of Blair Witch, Ed Sanchez, and, it's like a home invasion meets a haunted house film. So, that was one of the biggest things that drew me to it when I first read the script, that it felt like it was like these 2 stories that just eventually collide, and I really love I think the Stylist, I really leaned into it, but I love, like, showing kinda me doing, like, 2 separate storylines with Claire and Olivia. I did that in The Stylist, but then this one literally has 2 different casts of characters going through 2 different stories, and then they finally all meet. And yeah, so I was really, really excited about it, and to do something kind of unlike anything I haven't done anything in the haunted house world or in a home invasion world, and we got to shoot in this epic mansion in Maryland. Just going in there was a dream come true for me. I got to spend a month in there. Um, it was so exciting. I can't wait for him to see it. I mean, you kind of hinted at it earlier, Michael C. Williams from this Blair Witch as well. He stars in it, and Emily Bennett from Alone with You, and the DP, Justin Brooks, is Emily's partner. They make films together. So I kind of that was part of my scheme. I'm like, we need to steal
Mhm.
Emily and Justin onto this film.
Nice.
Um, but we also cast, Vienna Moss, who played the flower girl in The Stylist. It was a small part in
Oh.
The Stylist, but it was kind of a fun, creepy moment, and she was so impressive when I worked with her then. I couldn't wait to find a reason to bring her back, and
Mhm.
the new film has a big role for a child, and she was cast as that kid, and I mean, I think she's like the Danny Torrance of our movie, and
Mm.
it was really cool to also work with a have a that big of a child role. I didn't know I would do that ever. It's kind of the traditional family moving into a haunted house idea. Um, but yeah, it was awesome, and I'm really excited for people to see her really shine in, like, a big role. I'm so excited for people to see this stuff, and I wish I could
I
say so
can't
many
wait.
more things.
I can't
I
wait.
think
Okay, you ready to do these 5 takes? Get you out of
I'm
here?
ready.
Alright. So, number 1, name the horror movie that made you fall in love with the genre.
Can I have more than one?
Sure,
Because 'cause I'm so bad with even remembering which the first one, but I
that's
think it
cool.
was a mix of the first couple I remember very well watching is Doctor Giggles and Candyman, which still love both of them.
I just
What?
watched Candyman for the first time.
Oh my god.
After 31 years, I finally watched it.
And what did you think?
I loved it. I'm gonna after
Wait, that's a great example of another tragic horror movie, while,
Yes,
like, there's also, like, some romance in there that's it's,
yes.
like, weird, it's not it's just, like, underneath the top layer, but, like, there's clearly
It's like
this, like,
that longing gothic type of
connection between
romance.
Helen and Candyman, and
Yeah, yeah. Number 2, name some of your favorite spooky or creepy movies.
now this list could go on
I
forever.
know. Give me like
I
5.
start
Give
with
me
a
5.
few, well, a few I put Candyman on here because I can't not put it on here. Texas Chainsaw, of course, we've talked about. Scream is one of my favorites growing up, like, very informed. That movie, like, gave me an education on the genre as a whole because it's like, not only is it making fun of it, there's, like, a bazillion references in it, which back then, when the internet was a baby, I found this blog, or I don't even know what we called it back then,
Mhm.
that someone had written out all of the, references, like, the smaller ones, like, I wouldn't have known as a 12-year-old because I hadn't seen those movies, and I used that as, like, this bible of, like, this is I need
Oh
to see
my
all
god.
these movies, and then I will, like, be a horror,
Yeah, yeah.
expert eventually.
Oh
Um
my gosh. I did something similar when I saw Goodfellas for the first time. I know you love that movie too, and I watched an interview, it was like a half-hour interview with Martin Scorsese, and you know him, a million words a minute, and he was just listing off all these movies and all these directors, and I went back and rewound and wrote everything down. I said, "I need to see all these movies," and the one that stuck out to me was The Red Shoes, and that was, like, one of the first criterions I bought because I needed to see what was it about this movie and who the hell are the archers, and I wanted to just learn. And it same thing, it just became an education, not only on him, but his influences, and got me into Italian cinema and Fellini and, Juliet and of the Spirit, all the stuff. And I was like,
That is
Got
what
me
it's
away
like. I
from
could
the blockbuster movies and all that. It's
yes,
crazy.
he is so inspiring, and his, like, love for film is so you can just, like, feel it when he talks that it's like
Exactly.
it's intoxicating. It's
Mhm.
like, "I'll never know or see as much as this man has seen." Um, well, I put 2 newer movies on here for fun.
Okay.
Um, Satan's Slaves, which is a great Indonesian horror film, it's on Shudder.
Okay, I gotta check that
You
out.
haven't seen that one? It's
No.
connected to I've gotta remember. I'm pretty sure, Joko Anwar directed Satan's Slaves. He has written or directed a lot of the big Indonesian movies that have come out recently, and I think they're all on Shudder. In Petigore, he also did, and, he's connected to the Timo Tjahjanto gang. Kimo and Timo used to make films together because I know Kimo has directed with Anwar writing. I'm obsessed with Indonesian horror and action in
Yeah,
general. Um,
that's the thing,
so
like,
The
I'll
Queen
get
of
on
Black
something.
Magic is the other one that he
Okay.
wrote and, Kimo Stamble directed, which, crazy Indonesian backstory. Timo Tjahjanto, he directed, The Night Comes for Us, a big action movie on Netflix, May the Devil Take
Mhm.
Us, which is horror, but before he was directing on his own, Timo and Kimo were a team. They directed that segment on ABC's of Death, Ella's for Libido, which they got in big trouble for, super fucked up, and they directed that segment in VHS where there was, like, this cult. It was, like, the only Asian one, but there was this cult and devil fucking thing flies down at the end. But they started together, and it's really interesting career because they were making horror, and then Timo made a film called Killers, which was like a horror action fusion, and then he started making straight action and straight horror, but he does both now, and I'm obsessed with that world, and all the action films of those directors, they seem to be like, that's what turned me on to action at all in the first place.
Really?
Um, I didn't really grow up watching a lot of I guess I thought about American action just as, like, really mainstream stuff,
Mhm.
um, but just how, like, stylish and beautiful those movies are.
Oh,
Like,
you gotta
John
put
Wick
me
is
on.
ripping off, like, the Asian actions,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
aesthetic,
Yeah, for
um,
sure. The gun
which I
fu, as
love
they
those
call it.
too. Yeah. Um, but yeah, so I've all that's led me to I remember hearing the title, Satan Slaves, I'm like, "Sign me up. That sounds super fucked up. I can't fucking wait." But yeah, that Joko Anwar, he's just, like, churning out movies since then, and they're awesome.
And what
Um,
was the other one?
this one, I think, comes out in a few days, so, When Evil Lurks.
Yeah.
Had this guy is he's a Spanish filmmaker. He made the film Terrified, a few years ago, also on
Yes.
Shudder. Terrified had some, like, images I will never forget. They're so scary and fucked up, and so
We
I
were
was
just
so
talking about
excited for
that
this.
earlier this month. We were talking
Um,
about that movie.
yeah, I believe it comes out in a few days. I just saw Shudder post about it. I got to see it this past weekend at Knoxville Horror Film Festival, and it just I mean, and I was as hyped as could be, so I'm kinda when I know, like, I'm setting myself up to be a little bit disappointed sometimes when I do that, but it was just, like, blew me away. I mean, there were times I was, like, yelling at the movie, like, it was that powerful. I was like, "Oh my fucking god," after this shit was happening. It
Yeah.
is, like, insanely fucking wild and shocking.
Yeah.
It just, like it's a movie that just starts going and just starts like, it is just, like, taking off from the
R
start. There's no, like, "Let me build this all up before something crazy happens." It's fucking insane.
Well, if
American
it's anything
filmmakers
like
could really take
Terrified
note from that.
I could just imagine. And
You remember that
also
bathroom scene? He's, like in Terrified, he's, like, floating in midair and just like, smashing from, like, side to side. Like, this director is so good at creating these, like, horrific fucking images. I haven't seen stuff like that, I don't even know how long.
yeah, makes you wonder what they dream about. But, like Panic Hispanics, that was at, Panic Fest too, right?
Yes.
He was involved in that as well.
Yes, he did do a segment in there,
Mhm.
which everyone should check that out. Another connection to Ed Sanchez also did a segment, and Gigi Salguero also did one. Mike Mendez.
All right, number 3. Name a horror movie that everybody loves, but you don't really like it.
Will you my plan was to intentionally pass on this just because I'm not someone who wants to be talking bad about
Yeah,
any movie
yeah.
publicly.
You're excused. Let's flip it. Name a horror movie that needs more love. People don't talk about it enough, or they don't remember it if it's an old school one.
The first one that came to mind, maybe some of the nerds would argue me that it's not horror, whatever the hell, you know how we like to get about that shit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I have The Cell, from the '90s with our girl J Lo and, like,
Halo. We were just talking about this recently because my wife refuses to ever watch that movie again. I don't know if it's the whole psychology connection, psychiatry connection, but then also the images,
yeah,
and the
again, like,
images stay with you. Tarsem was
it's like
involved with that movie.
it's similar to
Ye
kinda like how I feel about Damien when Evil Lur his the way he's able to make these images that, like, stay with you. They're
Mhm.
so I don't even know the word for it. They're, like, just so amazing and just been so fucked up. Yeah, the imagery, just that whole, concept of, like, going into someone's mind, and then that allowed them to do anything go to this crazy fantasy world that's just is gorgeous and so, so, so disturbing, and it's another one that makes you can sympathize with the serial killer played by fucking Vincent I
Of
can
all
never
people, right?
he is so incredible. He is so terrifying and also so sad because you see hints of his past, his abuse
Mhm.
that he went through. I mean, it is a very disturbing
Yeah.
part
The
scenes in that movie. It's
the
just so
imagery.
inventive and so beautiful. I mean, the dolls that were like real life and came out of the cages, and it was terrifying. The fucking horse that they chop up and then like split it, and then he has to walk through it, or
Ah!
she has to walk through it. I mean, it's so cool, like, what the hell? How is this movie someone needs to release some badass edition of it now. We
Mhm.
probably just have a basic ass DVD out there of this thing.
Yeah, it needs a 4K just so you can see the imagery as, like,
I would
bright
also
and
die to
beautiful
see it at the
HDR
theater.
on it. Yeah. Before I ask this last question, I wanna thank you. I am so glad we finally got to do this. Um, Tell the people where they
Thank
can
you.
find you.
Um, all over the internets, I'm at Jill Sixx with 2 X's on all the social medias. My website that every time I bring this up, I desperately need to work on it. It's been like 2 years, sixtape.com. Um, and yeah, hopefully I will have news about Black Mold coming out, and of course, Black Mold Film, at Black Mold Film on all the social medias, and at the Stylist Film, and hopefully soon at my new film, we'll have that info.
Can't say, can't say. That's it for this conversation. Thank you for watching. If you like what you saw today, please go ahead, give it a like. If you've been here before and you want to come back, give it a subscribe, hit that bell, all that good stuff. Um, and as I always say, go watch a movie. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.